So we are living in an age of endless information. Oh, there it goes again. That endless information, phones ringing, things going off, ever which direction. Does that happen to y'all? Yes. Because I just heard it in my head. I don't know about you. So every day we are flooded with opinions, headlines, information. We are told that it's this way and we are told that it's that way. I was watching some infomercial in between the informational piece I was listening to. And there's a guy that came on and he said, this is what you must eat and stay away from these things. So I watched through this 30 minutes of information about felting. And another piece came on about eating. And this person says, you must eat this and never touch that. And I thought, well, no wonder we're confused, because one absolute genius says the absolute opposite of this genius. It's confusing, isn't it? Do you ever get confused when you get to the end of the day and you're about to go to bed and you go, oh, wow, what has happened today? And what am I really supposed to think with all the information I've received? You know, there's conspiracy theories and there's fear. Is there fear out here? Do y'all ever hear anything? Yeah, about fear. There's spiritual confusion, and everybody is talking. Everybody's talking, and few are listening. Have you noticed that? Few are listening. I love it. I have a couple of friends who I do love dearly. They'll call me up and they'll talk, and they'll go, and Sondra, how are you? And I go, well, and they start talking again, and I'm like, I guess this is how I am. I'm listening. Because we are doing that. We're talking, but we forget to listen. We forget that we have been taught in unity, that we are guided by an inner presence. And when we listen to that inner presence, our life's a little bit smoother, or at least mine is. Is that true for you? When you listen to the guidance, does your life feel like it's going a little smoother? Now, I'm not saying that everything's okay. I'm not saying that there aren't things that come up that we may not like, but it just goes smoother. I start to accept things sooner when there's something that I don't want to have to accept if I'm listening to the inner guidance. Unity is called practical Christianity. Any of y'all heard that? Unity, practical Christianity. And there's a reason for that. So it is meant that we are to live the teachings, not only when life is peaceful, but at all times. We are to live the teachings of Jesus the Christ. We are to live spiritual teachings. And there's many great masters that have given us much information. So between social media, constant news cycles, artificial intelligence, manipulated images, and endless commentary, it's sometimes difficult to discern the truth. And there is times that there is no truth in all of that. And so it's important for us to use our spiritual power of wisdom. Spiritual wisdom. It is one of the 12 gifts that we've been given. Do you call upon your spiritual wisdom with intention? Anybody in here? Yeah. Because when we listen, when we call upon divine wisdom with intention, things start to happen. Charles Fillmore taught that divine wisdom is present throughout all of creation. And if this is true, then truth isn't absent from the world, even in the midst of things that we hear and see. It is not absent. It's always present. So if it's always present, it's important that we perceive this wisdom, this divine guidance, this opportunity. Charles Fillmore wrote, "The Spirit of truth is true spiritual guidance for every individual." For every individual, we all have it. We all have it. Notice that he didn't say it was an external authority. He said spirit. And where do we find spirit? Spirit's within. We don't have to look outside of ourselves. We don't have to look out and read and see and ask other people to tell us what the truth is. But we do have the opportunity to get still and listen. So the Spirit of truth is alive within each of us now. It's not shouting. It's not manipulating. It's not demanding, but gently, gently guiding us. Truth is not merely what's trending, what they're showing on all the headlines. Truth is not whatever shouts the loudest, although sometimes I question that. It appears what shouts the loudest is reported the most, and then before long I hear it as truth from somebody. Truth is not determined, this is important, truth is not determined by fear, by popularity. Fear is not determined by what is repeated the most. Truth is discovered in spiritual consciousness. Spiritual consciousness? What's that? What is spiritual consciousness? You see, Jesus was a big one for spiritual consciousness. And the way he achieved that was he went aside. He went away. He got out of the crowd. He went to the mountaintop. He got still. He got still and he got quiet. He got still and quiet. So we live in a culture that rewards reactions more than reflection. Yes? Yeah. We're always reacting rather than taking the time to reflect. The loudest voice sometimes wins. False fears spread faster than truth and wisdom. Outrage gains more clicks than compassion. And if we're not careful, we begin to absorb the emotional climate that is around us without ever asking, does this align with spiritual truth? Does this align with the Christ presence within me? Does this align with my heart, with my truth of truth? I am listening for a still small voice. Or am I? Or am I simply reacting? Am I listening for that still small voice to guide me? Many people today are spiritually exhausted, not because they lack information. Heaven knows we have plenty of information going around. But they're exhausted because they have too much noise going on. Mark Nepo, author and poet, says, the heart knows the way. It is the mind that complicates the journey. Yeah, it's the mind that complicates the journey. So noise can be heard like fear, endless comparison. Do we have that going on? Mm-hmm. Anger disguised as righteousness. Oh, I'm the right one, you're just wrong. Or without any humility at all. I know what's right, and this is the truth. Spiritual performance without any depth, i.e. without any truth under it. Have you ever seen people who will tell you about spirit, and yet they're just talking perhaps from ego? Anybody in here experienced that? So there's that going on, but there's also, It's not all external. Because much of this noise goes on within our head. I know sometimes my head can get so busy, I have to say, stop. Just stop. I talk a lot in my house. My cat loves me. She just, she follows me around as I'm talking about this and that and the other. And there are times I just have to say, stop it, Sondra. It's just your head going off. Let it rest. So, unity teaches that the Christ presence already lives within us. And discernment is the sacred practice of learning to recognize that voice versus the others. The voice of truth, the voice of discernment, the voice of the Christ presence. And I bet right now every one of you could give me an example of there's been a time when you've experienced that. And I would also bet that you've been surprised, because I'm always surprised. Oh, wow, listen to what happened today. So the soul cannot hear divine wisdom while it is constantly reacting to outside stimulus or that stimulus within ourselves. So the sacred practice of discernment, that's what we're about today. Always, when I read a book that talks about an answer to something and they spend 3/4 of the book talking about the problem and they don't get to the solution, I find that annoying. So I'm consciously making an effort to include enough solution to this because we know the problem. But the solution is what we're hungry for, right? It's what I'm always hungering for. So discernment's a practice. It asks us to pause before reacting. It asks us to listen without judging. That one can be a little tough, right? It asks us to pray before concluding. Pray before concluding. It's important. It asks us to seek wisdom instead of certainty. I don't know, but I'm seldom certain about anything anymore. I just have to go, well, in my opinion, my thinking is this, but I don't really know. Because in truth, I feel like I know very little today. There's so much going on. There's so many different ideas. But when I get quiet, then I can get past that I don't know-ness. So sometimes spiritual maturity or discernment means saying, I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. I don't know what's right. I just don't know. In an age where we are addicted to instant opinions, then we find that humility becomes holy. You know what I mean? We have this instant expectation of somebody's opinion. But isn't it a wonderful, holy moment when someone stops, thinks about something, prays on something, or even says, I don't know. I don't know. It's my experience this, but I'm not sure. I don't know. That's a holy moment. I used to have to know everything. I don't know if anybody else is like that in here, but I had to know everything. I don't have to know anything. And I can say to you, it's my experience, or this is the way it is for me, but you get to look for yourself. You get to look for yourself. It's important to know that spiritual discernment is not a weakness. Spiritual discernment and wisdom is guided by love. It is a place of truth. It is a place of peace. And I loved it that you left the daily word up here, because I wanted to just repeat some of this that came out. So in this place of knowing discernment, we have loving thoughts, we have loving words, we have actions that contribute to world peace, not war. In this place of discernment, Mark Nepo reminds us that trusting the process means surrendering to the flow of life. Today, artificial intelligence can imitate the voices of human speech. The media can manipulate images. People can live in completely different versions of reality than we have. People can see things differently. My brother and I, well, we grew up in two different households. You know, we'll go back over something and go, well, this is how it happened. And he looks at me and he goes, did not. Did not. How many of you have experienced that? We have different realities through the lenses that we live. We have our experiences and we see through those lenses. Accurate or inaccurate, my glasses probably won't work for you because they would distort everything for you. But for me, they make things clearer. So we have to be aware that we are looking through our lenses and that people may have a different opinion. And that's okay. So spiritual discernment matters more than ever. And we need to remember that technology is not an enemy. Noise isn't an enemy. We need to remember that it is unconsciousness. Unconsciousness. Walking through life unconscious, that can be dangerous. Unconscious means that we're not paying attention. We're not listening to the still small voice. We're just walking. So the deeper question is, what is Spirit revealing? What is Spirit revealing to you this moment? Fillmore taught that divine wisdom transcends intellectual knowledge. That divine wisdom is rooted in spiritual insight. It guides our decision-making and our action. It is available to everybody through prayer and meditation. And it deepens our connection with God and ourselves. And it means listening. Listening to our gut, listening to our heart, being still. And one of my greatest indicators that things are not going right is my stomach. My gut starts, I have to stop and say, whoops, what's happening here? I also had a practice for years when I was first doing my spiritual work and healing my past and all that stuff. And I would sing a song. So if something negative came up, I would start singing Amazing Grace. And I would sing it and sing it and sing it. And I sang it so much that it got to a time in my life that if things were not going right, Amazing Grace would go off. And I would go, oh, is there something that I'm not comfortable with? Probably. It still actually works for me. I hate to say that. I feel like I've grown, and yet it still works. So, the still small voice. What is that? Do you know how to find it? Do you look for it? Do you get quiet and listen? Rumi says that there is a voice that doesn't use words. Listen. There is a voice that doesn't use words. Listen. I just think that's so profound. And how often do we stop and listen? So in the teachings of Charles and Myrtle Fillmore, the still small voice is understood as a quiet inner guidance system, a divine wisdom that is within every person. And it's a phrase that comes from the story of Elohim, who has encountered God, but did not experience God in the wind, where he thought it should be. And he did not experience God in the fire. He was listening, but he was not, or he was trying to experience it, but he wasn't really listening. And so there was an earthquake, there was wind, there was fire, and he had to become still and listen to the still small voice. And there was the guidance that he needed. That's when he knew what he needed to do. So Fillmore interpreted this metaphysically rather than literally. He said that God speaks through intuition, spiritual insight, inner knowing, and the silence within consciousness. So if we're going to get silent and listen, we have to get out of the mind chatter, that monkey mind that runs around, and really become quiet. Really become quiet. So discerning information is free of manipulation. It is free of fear. It doesn't separate us. Instead, it provides compassion. It does not disconnect us. It is free from that place of disconnection. It actually connects us to the presence of God that's within us. So, in an age of noise, discernment becomes a sacred practice. And I bet everyone in here has a sacred practice. And so I'm going to ask that you add, if you haven't already, that you add just a little bit to it and ask yourself if truth changes. Oh, it doesn't. But our understanding does it not? You have a change as you grow and begin to understand more and more. So man is not wise because he talks much. Man is wise because he knows when to remain silent. I'd like to give this to some politicians, wouldn't you? Yeah, it's okay to remain silent. It's okay to remain silent in the middle of a conversation. It's my experience. The other people just keep talking. If I get quiet, people keep talking, and it's okay. So fear narrows our consciousness, but truth expands our consciousness. It raises our consciousness. It makes us more comfortable. It shows us freedom. It shows us a way to be spiritually free. So, like I said, I want to make sure that we talk a little bit about knowing the difference between truth and perhaps that false guidance. So true guidance or divine guidance comes from a place of love. It has a mature tone. It has mature content. It is consistent. It uses we statements. It provides a sense of support for an idea. It empowers ideas. It comes suddenly in response to prayer. You may feel an internal peace. Even if some of the elements don't feel real good, you still have that sense of peace when it is real, true guidance. False guidance, on the other hand, is impulsive. It changes topics all the time and streams of thought frequently. It's sneaky. It uses I statements and me. It's out of sync with your morals, and it exhausts your energy. You ever have something going on and you just find yourself exhausted? And then you finally get that that's not the way you're supposed to go, and all of your energy returns, and you feel light and excited? So false guidance tears down our confidence. It says that you are either better or worse than others. And it's wordy and full of boasts. Yes? If y'all experience that? So I have those false and divine guidance and false guidance. It's at the back. You can pick that up on your way out. There's also some questions that you can ask yourself to determine where you are and to seek that discernment that you really ask for and look for. So if you're experiencing confusion, fear, doubt, conflict, all those things that make us uncomfortable, here's the thing that you can do. You can say to yourself, does this idea, thought, blah, 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 does it create confusion, fear, or does it bring a deeper understanding of my life for my life? Which is that? What's going on here? So we have that opportunity to expand. Doesn't mean, I'll say this again, doesn't mean that truth is always comfortable. But spiritual truth ultimately moves us toward freedom. Moves us toward freedom. The second question you can ask yourself is, does this increase separation, or does it awaken compassion? Does it increase separation? Is it telling you that everybody else is wrong and that you should condemn them? Or does it allow you to have compassion for a person that is doing the best they can do? Because we're all expressions of the divine. And maybe at this moment, my truth isn't what it's going to be next week. At least I hope that's true. So we can have compassion as people begin to grow. It awakens that place within us to look for something more than what we don't like. The Dalai Lama says that love and compassion are necessities. They're not luxuries, and without them, humanity could not survive. Compassion and love. And so the third question you can ask yourself is, does this align with my highest good? Does this align with the truth? Does this align with my morals and values? Or is this something that I just want because I want it? I know none of you would ever be there because none of us are we? So I have a personal example for you about listening to divine guidance. My mother lived to be 101. She was a pretty wise woman. But one day she lived across the street from me. One day she came running over and she said, "We've got to go to the bank. My grandson has been in an accident and they put him in jail and we have to go get money to get him out right now." I said, "Okay, tell me more." She said, "Well, they said it was really important not to tell his father." And they knew a lot about my nephew's job and started talking about his job. So my mother reacted as most of us would, right? And then I said, "Well, go home, get your purse, I'll get dressed, we'll go." She's walking across the street and she stops. And she says, "Well, now just wait a minute." And so she calls her son and says, "How's your son?" And he goes, "He's great. We had dinner last night," and blah, 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 blah. My mother walked back across. She said, "You don't need to bother to get dressed. I don't need to bother to get my purse. It's a scam." So I went over, and the only thing for me to do was answer the telephone when the scammer called back to tell her how to transfer the money. That was kind of fun. I can't say that I had a lot of compassion for him. We live in this world today, and it's important that we stop and we listen and we think. We get in such a hurry, don't we? I have to do it, I have to do it now. We don't have to do it now. We need to stop, breathe, ask ourselves, is this true? Is this for my higher good? Is this for the highest good of the world, the universe, those people around me? There was a young man that went to a guru and he said, "You know, I just don't know how to tell what is truth and what is not." And the guru said, "Well, do you have two voices that talk to you?" And the young man said, "Yes, I do. That's why it's so confusing." And the guru said, "Well, what happens?" And he goes, "Well, they give me two conflicting different stories." And the guru said, "So which one is stronger? Have you thought about that?" The young man said, "No. How do I know which one is stronger?" And the guru said, "Which one do you listen to? That is the strongest, whichever we listen to." So don't we want to make sure that we're listening with divine guidance, with the knowing of truth? So we can experience many different truths, but there's only one real truth. There's only one real truth, and that one is the truth of the divine. by whatever name you use for the divine. There's only one truth, and it is a truth of love and a truth of compassion. It's a truth that holds you and lifts you. It's a truth that cares for you and others. And so it is.